That's recording.
Okay. Booyah. Well, hey, Franz and anemones, welcome to yet another Underwater Pat episode. This is your dive log, dive 3 of 2020. There was a change in wardrobe. It is still the same day as the other videos. As a Dive Mola pro team self-sponsored boy, I don't know. You tell me what your thoughts are about product placement here on this channel, but it's gonna keep happening. Welcome everyone to this third episode, Dive 3 of 2020 with my good friend Phil, Ocean Phil. Shout out to Ocean Phil, a great, wonderful ocean lad. We are gonna go on a dive here today at North Monastery Beach in Carmel. You're gonna see a theme here on this channel, kind of diving between two different spots. If it's good, Carmel, Monastery Beach. If it's not so great, ocean conditions wise, back inside the Monterey Bay. Let's dive in, shall we? Okay, it's gonna be a long one, everybody, so get ready. We are just gonna watch some of this footage here, and we'll talk about it. So on this particular dive, my strobes were not working, so I was not able to, really take any photos that I wanted to on this, or that I had expected to. But you know when that happens, if you have a video light, start taking some video, and you can start shooting ambient photography. Anyway, that was Phil diving around. And here we've got our giant spined sea star. There was a little baby. I think that in the background was a little baby rubber lip surf perch. I'm not exactly sure. But this is your giant spine star, aka your jewel star, Pisaster giganteus. This one was just beautiful, hanging out there on the rock. You can see that surge. You got all these bryozoans there on the kelp. You see the sporophylls there of the kelp swing back and forth. That's what's helping the kelp breed. And then obviously over there is our good boy, sweet Ocean Phil with his camera. Now here you're going to see a little bit of me trying to be cool with the camera work here, panning up to take a closer look here at a school of blue rockfish, and the exposure is completely off, so I try again. Here it is right there. Really, really fun stuff. Just panning up from the darkness up to the top. I know that my camera has an auto ISO, but I didn't put it on. I was just trying to do it manually. There's our blue rockfish school you may have heard about from episode 1. And of course, we've got our little olive rockfish spoiler hanging out right there. But yeah, the blue rockfish school was in huge numbers. It was overcast that day, so a little bit gray, a little bit dark under the water. If the sun had been out, this would be just sublime. Oh, that is so dark. And we're just going to pan up one more time. Look at us go. Look at that cinematography. High production value here on the Underwater Pat YouTube channel. You can come to expect just the best sets, the best commentary, the best video. It's all just fantastic. Okay. So anyway, our beautiful blue rockfish school, I just kind of hung out with them for a little while. Again, these are a pelagic eater fish, or they like to eat pelagic things rather. So that's why they're hanging out there at the edge of the kelp. They'll eat jellies that come by. I'm not exactly sure what the olive rockfish get out of it, the olive and yellowtail rockfish that hang out with them, but you'll see that every so often. Here's a reverse angle. The bubbles there on the right are Ocean Phil. Here is a random scuba diver. We happen to be out there on a Saturday, one of the only flat Saturdays that we had, so a little bit of traffic underwater. You don't usually see too many people diving at the same time unless you're at the breakwater on a weekend, but when the good conditions are there, you obviously have a lot of people coming out there. And you'll see here, Phil is taking a lot of strobe photos there, and I'm just doing my video thing with a way underpowered light because I had not anticipated my strobes not firing. But you can see just how gorgeous this rockfish school is. Very nonplussed, totally nonchalant, all the excited words, just hanging out, enjoying a grand old time there in the kelp. And this is this kelp amphitheater that's on the other side of the wash rocks there at North Monastery. Really sumptuous stuff. More flashes from Phil. Nice, nice. Let's see, where are we at here in this video clip? I'll just fast forward to the next. Oh, actually, it was getting good right there. This is what happens when I'm doing more videos. You just have a lot more. All right, let's take a closer look. Look at that. And then I'm just going to pan up and look up to the surface. Oh, sumptuous. Look at them go. North Monastery is part of the Point Lobos State Marine Reserve, so there's no fishing going on in that zone. That's why you can see so many fish. Now here, we've got a little cabezon hanging out there on the giant kelp holdfast. There were a few cabezons this day that had laid their eggs and were guarding them. So females lay the eggs, obviously, but then the males will actually guard those eggs, and they can be pretty territorial. So in this case here, we've got probably a male hanging out. I didn't see the eggs of this particular one, but there was one a little bit further up from where I am here that Phil was looking at with its eggs. The eggs of a cabezon, by the way, are toxic. Do not eat them. They have high levels of copper, and they'll really make you sad if you eat them. So if you're a spear fisherman out there and you're catching a cabezon, do not eat the roe. You will be in deep doo-doo if you do so. Literally, of course, as you liquefy your insides and spray them out both ends. You can see how much surge there was. Again, it's been a pretty wavy winter. Haven't been diving as much as I want to, not only from congestion, but also just conditions have been pretty tough. We decided to go for it. Both Phil and I were a little bit congested, and actually after this, I was so sick after this dive. Totally worth it. You might recognize these three anemones from, I think, video number 2. No, video number 1. We're on number 3 right now. You may recognize those exact same anemones. Look at this honkin' holdfast. Look at how big that is. This is a giant kelp plant that has been around for a long, long time. It's hanging out over the edge there. I don't know how old a giant kelp plant is that has that big of a holdfast, but good Lord, look at that monster. This is sort of towards the other side canyon, almost to the end of the reef there on the other side of the wash rocks. One of my favorite places in the whole world is right there. But look at that hunk and holdfast. Here we got a little bit of a leather star action. Leather stars were not one of those sea stars that really wasted. They tend to eat anemones. You'll see them walking around there. So there's a big old leather star. They smell a little bit like garlic when you pick them up. And very soft. So here's just a little closer look at some of the animal life on the reef. There is your white-spotted rose anemone. I do not know the current scientific name of them. We got some sponges down here, some tunicates as well, some hydroids there in the center, sponges right there, more sponge there, white-spotted rose anemone there, a moonglow anemone there, big old tunicate right here, spiky tunicate there, all these orange cup corals hanging out, bryozoans galore. Nice. Just showing off some of the reef here. Some of these orange sponges. One of these days, I'll find the nudibranch that lives on the orange sponge there. There's some staghorn bryozoan doing its best hydrocoral impression. Staghorn bryozoans everywhere at this spot. There's more over there. Here is some tunicates. I believe Tridodendum. There was a yellowtail rockfish. Yep, there it goes. Maybe it was an olive. Ah, sure. Back to our tunicate, and then leafy hornmouth there on the left side. Got strawberry anemones, beautiful jewel top snail there. But yeah, so many tunicates, so many sponges here in this zone. Oh, looks like I paused it. Nice. There's some red volcano sponge. There's a few different types of sponges like that, but the kelp forest is so full of life. There's so much life in the kelp forest. So much color, so much beauty. It's always fun to go take a look. What was I doing here? Oh, here are some big abalone shells. So in this area, there are active sea otter hunters on abalone. And you can see here, this is a decently sized red abalone. There are actually the same number of abalone with otters and without sea otters. It's just the behavior and availability of them that changes. So there's still plenty of abalone when there's otters around. It's just the big ones that are out in the open get eaten. So in this case, you can see here, decent sized red abalone, probably eaten by a sea otter there. And there's so many of these big shells at North Monastery, so many of them. What was I filming here? Oh, a little snub nose sculpin right there. Hello, hi. Oh, and we're off to another part of the reef. We got San Diego dorad there. Tasteful nudibranchs as well. San Diego dorades love to eat sponges, so good spot for them to be. Some turban snails. So this you saw in episode 1, so still there, but leafy hornmouth eggs. It looks like we still got some of the same snail action, same fish-eating anemone there, so a little bit of a waypoint right now at North Monastery, around 55 feet, and you'll see those leafy hornmouth eggs. There's good ocean boy Phil. Perfect buoyancy. Just such an inspiring person to be underwater with. Look at that. Just in his element. This was Phil's dive that he needed to get in, testing his new camera before he went down to Mexico. He's actually there right now, I think. Hey, Phil. As I'm recording this, so Phil's down in Mexico hanging out with gray whales. Doing a good thing. Okay. So here, adjusting some of the settings. That's the clicking that you're hearing. And here we've got a kelp rockfish. And I'm about 65 feet deep. You can see this is where the kelp stops. And now or the giant kelp at least. And now we're just looking at reef all the way down into the abyss. So behind me there, it goes down probably 300 feet. That's the North Monastery Canyon on the school side. So I'm kind of heading down here to about 75 feet or so to look at these fish-eating anemones, which come in 2 different colors. You got the pink tentacles and you got the white tentacles and the big red foot there. You can hear that breathing. That's me breathing in as much as I can, and there's me adjusting the buoyancy to my BC. But taking a nice deep breath, you can inflate your lungs and adjust your buoyancy, so helps you stay a little bit more steady. And then here I decided to do some cinematic pan up here. Oh, look at me go. Yeah, get nice and close. Very good. Figure out what you're going to do. Wait for the surge. Oh, this is embarrassing to watch. Oh, there you go. There you go, Pat. Oh, look at that pan. Absolutely ridiculous. My recording just paused how bad it was. Okay, and we're going back down, and we're going to try it again. Very good. So I'm down like 75, 80 feet, and thankfully there's not too much time down there to be such a dummy. Oh, got a little striped perch hanging out, Ambiota lateralis. Oh, and we've got some aggregated nipple sponge, which is pretty fun. And then we've got a little, looks like yellowtail rockfish there, a little snail in the middle. Aggregated nipple sponge, that's what that one is. Of course I'm filming that. And then there was kind of a small lingcod that was hanging out around 80 feet or so. There's usually a lot of big lingcod that are hanging out here on the edge of the canyon drop-off. And pretty sizable ones. Right now is kind of breeding season. You see them coming up into the shallows. This is kind of a small one, so just getting a little bit closer. Oh, yeah, you don't want me any closer than that, do you? Hunching yourself up a little bit. And here I'm just going to do some, like, really egregious cinematic pan up and away from the lingcod. You can kind of see where we're at here on the reef. There we go. Zooming back. So this whole rocky drop-off area, it looks very similar. There you go. There's that kelp there in the background. So where the kelp ends is about 65 feet or so. The kelp at North Monastery is super healthy because there's tidal upwelling that happens all the time. The tides are this giant wave, right, that goes around the planet twice a day, or at least we have 2 different tides in our area. Or we have a high tide, a low tide, a high tide, and a low tide twice a day. And here, where the water is moving up and down this canyon, you've got always this refreshing of water coming up and feeding the kelp. And here we're back in the kelp. And that's why it looks so good there. And it stops, the kelp stops growing when there's not enough light anymore for it to sustain. So there was Phil. We're coming back up a little bit more there. Anyway, that's why the giant kelp looks so good here. There's that gopher rockfish I took that really blurry photo of. I don't know if it's the same one, but similar zone. Gopher rockfish and black and yellow rockfish look almost identical, but they swap areas depending on how deep you are. So shallower, you're more likely to see a black and yellow rockfish. Deeper, you're more likely to see a gopher rockfish. There was a painted greenling there. And this gave me an idea of filming this rockfish. It's on top of this huge bed of reef-building worms, Diopatra ornata. Diopatra ornata. I don't know how you pronounce it. There's another painted greenling. But these are all worms here that are hanging out here between the boulders, and they form these tubes that glom on other shells, other bits of passing stuff, and they can kind of set the sand in place there. So you can see these are all worms here in the middle. There's a little bat star, maybe chowing down on one. Those are all worms there, and they're reef-building worms. You'll see that a lot at North Monastery near the sand. Oh, and here we've got a orange puffball sponge with a red abalone hat. Super cute. Look at that. Look at you go. Super fun. Anyway, so now we're moving right along. There's one of our sea stars, potentially. So giant spine star potentially having some wasting. You can see how curled up it is on itself. You got a leather star here to its right. Yeah, that sea star might not be doing so hot. And then here, we're coming up on the end of the video clips. And this here is just gorgeous video. In my mind, this is gorgeous video. I'm just going to plug my own video. This is some really nice video, rather, of the Blue Rockfish School again. Hasn't been tons of diversity, I guess, on the channel in terms of subject matter, but this time I have my light on, taking some closer video there. I should scroll back because I missed it, but one of these rockfish is pooping, and we can't not have that content on the channel. Look at it right here. Oh, who's been a good rockfish doing its part digesting open ocean food and releasing it there to the reef? There's our rockfish boy pooping. I knew that there was something specific I want to talk about with this clip, and I can't believe I almost forgot to mention rockfish doo-doo. Anyway, that's the type of content you can expect here on the Underwater Pat YouTube channel. Smash that like button. Go ahead and subscribe. Tell all your friends. We got rockfish poop here on the internet. Finally, someone giving us the dirty about rockfish. I love it when rockfish like this come at the camera like they've got an idea, like, oh, I can help adjust your settings. Oh, how do I look? Oh, I look good. And they're off. See, everyone's a critic, but they can't handle the heat. And then there's, looks like a pretty pregnant yellowtail rockfish there, or olive rockfish. There's your good boy, Phil, taking some photos. I'm taking some video of Phil taking some photos. We're getting very meta here. We have a really great group of local underwater photographers that like to get out there and take photos. It's pretty fun to have a crew out there. Oh, we got a little sharp-nosed perch over there, maybe a white perch. That one will be important a little bit later. Those are cleaner perch. When I do an episode here for the channel of my dive with the mola molas, those are some of the fish that are cleaning those molas there. So pretty fun. We got Phil taking the snaps on the other side, and we've got just the smooth going by there of rockfish. One of the most important things about shooting underwater video, obviously, is trying to keep yourself as steady as you can. And so that was just a lot of breathing and buoyancy control ahead of time. This is some young giant kelp growing up there on the side of the reef. So hopefully these will be nice, tall, proud giant kelp plants in just a few weeks. Yeah, so this video here, you can see there's a young sharp-nosed perch right here. Where is it? No, right here. Don't mind me adjusting the settings. So this little fish right there is kind of cleaning these young blue rockfish. These are much smaller there. So anyway, this has been a thing over at this side of the beach. There's been this cleaning station with these sharp-nosed perch or white perch. I'm not exactly sure which one they are. Phanerodon something. But yeah, cleaner perch. They like to clean off the parasites off of their neighbors there. So that's what that one is right there. And snap that one for all you folks on YouTube. You can see some of the personal trainers there at work. And then here we are in the shallows of North Monastery. Fortunately, not super sunny that day, but you can see that canopy and just the absolutely gorgeous understory there. This is my favorite thing to look at, is being in the Kelp Cathedral like this. Truly stunning. And this is out at the end of the North Monastery swim out right next to the wash rocks. So most of the kelp photos that you may see, like kelp photo I have here in my apartment, is from right here in this spot. And just a few pan ups and pan downs for options and editing. And then there's Phil looking at some more blue rockfish. And then we ended up taking some photos. And that's what we're going to look at right now. We're going to look at some photos from that day, shall we? I'll try to go quickly through them. We're already at 20 minutes here on this video. But yeah, here we go. We had the blue rockfish in the kelp columns, and this is kind of around the point where I realized that my strobes were not firing and that it was going to be all ambient light. When that happens, you just have to try to be as steady as possible. If your video lights are powerful enough, then those can really help you with your images. But here I'm just snapping a bunch of different photos of the blue rockfish, lots in a row here. Let's see. We can just go back to the grid and kind of look through. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Over here, we've got, just a good look at your blue rockfish friend. This little raccoon striping there around the eye is how you know that you're dealing with a blue rockfish. The shape of the face and the overall pattern on it, just the way that this particular fish looks right now, this is how you know it's a blue rockfish. But there's a slightly different blue rockfish called the deacon rockfish, Sebastes diaconus. This is Sebastes mystinus. Anyway, two different species of rockfish. There's that look almost identical. There's so many rockfish in our area. We're one of the most speciose areas in the world for rockfish here in Central California. And so, don't worry if you can't quite tell them apart, but these are the blue rockfish. You've seen them. We've talked about them. Dear Lord, let's move on. Here's our beautiful boy. Here is what's likely a male cabezon there hanging out on that giant kelp holdfast that we saw during the video portion there. So this here is taken all with my video light. So just the video light on top, trying to stay as steady as I can. Cabezons named for their massive head, which you can see here. Very noticeable from all these little fringy parts there on their face. They're the largest sculpin that we have in our area. And right now they are breeding. They're having their eggs and laying them. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, if you're a spear fisherman, do not eat the eggs. Those will make you real sad. They are toxic to people there. And so here is the underside of the giant kelp. Those sporophylls, as I mentioned, producing the spores there for the reproduction of the giant kelp. We saw those younger giant kelps that were growing up there. Yeah, just a really fun spot here with the cabezon. I took a bunch of photos of it. This one's the edited one where I corrected the white balance, but you can just kind of see here. I'm just trying my darndest to try to get something that works and looks good right up in its face, and clearly it didn't want to move. There we go. There's an edited one. Beautiful, just with the eye, and then there it is hiding out in the back. Can you find the eye of the cabezon? I think you can. Boop. Hello. Super fun. Oh, so fun I had to burp. Okay. So anyway, you'll often see this on this channel as we just spent a long time with one subject. And then we moved right along. So there's Phil. There's some giant kelp. Oh, it's so beautiful. Love that spot. This is sort of the edge of the amphitheater. And then there we've got some Phil beauty shots. And then this was one of my favorite photos that I've taken of that school. Just you have a little bit more of the context there with Phil in it. And there was just this column. They were going from maybe 15 feet and they were going all the way down to maybe like 55 feet or so. So this was just super cool to see this framing happen. And so if you're one of my patrons, this was your background for January, the #1 most liked photo that we had there on Instagram. So good job, Phil. Great ocean model. Good job, blue rockfish. Looking great. Whole lot of fun. Okay, moving along. I think that was pretty much it for the photos that I liked from that day. Do we have anything else from that day? Oh, yeah, we got a few more. So here's one that didn't quite edit. Well, it's still a little bit dark. I really like the perspective of the rockfish going down into the depths, but it's going to take a little bit of work yet to bring this out. Looks pretty sweet, though. This is where if I had a slightly better camera, I'd have a little bit more dynamic range to play around with. But you know what? This isn't so bad. This one's looking at the camera. You know what? This is salvageable. Nice, nice. Okay, well, you know what? We're going to flag that as a pick. All right, moving along. More rockfish, more rockfish, more rockfish, more rockfish. Okay, here's a little bit of that kelp cathedral, a little bit of that kelp canopy. What ends up happening if you're in the same spot for too long and taking a photo is your bubbles start clearing out this opening up here, which can be really distracting and bring in way more light. So be mindful of your bubbles as a photographer because it can affect what's happening in the canopy. And if you start having snails raining down on you, maybe it's time to move. But let's see. Oh yeah, heading to one of my favorite spots, this little canyon, this little nook, just straight back in there. Yeah, the Kelp Cathedral. First time I had a religious experience was diving in exactly these kinds of conditions and in that zone. Love kelp so much. We had a little bit of nudibranchage happening. This is a Monterey Dorid here. There's a few different yellow Dorids that look almost identical. This one you can see here, it has the black not on the little bumps, but on its body and the white plumes of gills there. That's how you know that it's a Monterey Dorid. Oh, sorry. I'll look it up. There's some lacy bryozoan there. Just a really pretty little slug friend. More giant kelp. We've got a photo of Phil coming up. Looks pretty nice. There's Phil looking back at the rockfish in the Kelp Cathedral. Oof, that's a good look right there. It was a fun time with Phil. After this, he went on vacation and I got super sick. Tried to chance it right before the congestion, and then I could not dive the rest of the time. We talked about those Diopatra ornata worms. There's some of them right here building a reef. So that's a whole patch of algae growing on top of the worm tubes right there. So reef builders. Nice, nice. Canopy, canopy, canopy. And that's it for that dive. Cool. So this was a long one. Sorry, everyone, but thank you so much for watching this dive vlog, dive 3 of 2020 from yours truly, Underwater Pat. If you like this video, give us a like. If you loved it, give us a subscribe. Thank you to all of my patrons listed right here for your support. You make this work possible, and hopefully these have been interesting to all of you folks so far. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for watching Underwater Pat in his living room talking about underwater stuff. Thank you so much for being there, and let's go diving. Still not sold on that as a conclusion, but that's what we have for now. I'm still here, by the way. If you do the hand thing, you're still there after you're done. Okay, we're